Welcome to Salt, Sage and Stardust, the podcast where spirit meets real life and intuition leads the way. Every episode, your hosts, Dr. Vicki Haspels and Keryn Rose, dive into the energy of what's shifting in the cosmos, in the collective and within ourselves. Good afternoon there, Miss Vicki.
Hello, Keryn. How are you today?
Oh, look, life is good. I won't say I'm well because that would not be entirely true. However, life is good and I'm loving life. What about you?
Well, same. I caught a bit of a lurgy and it's still hanging around. So it is same for me, just taking it one day at a time. But having said that, a lot of my friends are talking about heart-based illness or like eczema, a cold, things like that, all at the same time, all around this like a bit of a convergence.
Yeah.
And I always liken that to emotion, like heart-based emotional release. So whatever we're going through, we're having to really connect with our hearts at the moment.
Excuse me. Look, absolutely. We know that everything in the world is energy and everything is connected. We also know that the outside is reflective of what is going on the inside. There is so much change going on outside of us that is beyond our control. Energetically, we must do some type of recalibration. It's, for me, if I go outside and it's raining, I'm going to get wet because I'm outside and I'm being impacted on by what's going on outside. And when it comes to something like the immune system, we really don't know how strong it is until it's tested. And then we go, oopsie, there was a little crack there. We like to think we're doing all, in inverted commas, the right things to keep us strong. And every once in a while, there is something. And for me, there's always a learning in everything that happens for me. So feeling a little under the weather, I ask myself, how can I give myself that space? And hopefully you're able to do a similar thing, which is interesting given the topic we're going to talk about today.
I know, yes. I thought the same thing as you were talking,
which is all about boundaries.
Boundaries.
Now, boundaries, I want to share with the listeners that the idea of boundaries really is perspective. If we wish to see boundaries as walls, they will be walls. But the reality is they're really sacred lines of energy that define where we end and our world begins. It's like that, to use an expression, that line in the sand, but it does have an essence of sacredness come divinity about it. That line there says to me, I honor my needs. I honor my values. I honor my truth whilst teaching everybody that is in the outside world, from my perspective, how to engage with me in a way that's respectful and is really life-giving for me. Does that make sense to you?
It does. The whole concept of the boundaries being that sacred, like a part of who we are, that sacred thread of who we are, really tests us to understand who we are. And as you were talking about that, what boundaries meant to you, what was going through for me was that, and a lot of, like, as I was growing up, I didn't even understand that I was allowed to have boundaries.
Indeed.
And so sometimes didn't even know what a boundary was, that I could say no. And so talking about boundaries, talking about these threads and that place that is our sacred space can sometimes be, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean by that? What are boundaries? I hear a lot of people say, I don't have boundaries, or uh, even that whole, I'm too sensitive to the outside world. That type of
Yeah.
talk comes in, and it really comes down to, we don't know who we are, and until we like really consciously get to know ourselves, we can't really know what our boundaries are. We must test what that means for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Life is to be experienced. When we come
Yes.
into this incarnation of being a human being and we know we're here with purpose, what is that? I say to people, get out and live life. And if something feels good in that moment, it's part of who you are and why you're here,
Yes.
to the point
Yeah.
where it doesn't feel good anymore. And then you ask yourself, what do I do now? If our boundaries are too rigid, we isolate ourselves from the rest of the world. If we have no boundaries, we exhaust ourselves. And how do we find that middle ground, that happy dynamic? Get out there and live life.
Mm.
It's if you can appreciate, you can't get it wrong, but learning, because what I can do now and my boundaries now at 63 are going to be very different to what they would have been when I was 3.
Yeah.
At 3, they probably weren't even mine to a great extent. So the boundaries, I feel, can be dynamic.
Mm.
It's simply being connected to our response. How do I feel now?
That's it. How do I feel? Yep.
And in that moment, okay, I'm feeling this. I have a choice to do
Mm.
something about it
Mm. Mm.
and live it. We kind of, I'm not wanting to simplify things, but it is part of our experience in this incarnation. Understanding our boundaries and understanding they're going to wax and wane to a certain
Mm.
extent.
Mm.
But how do we know they're there? Well, when they're tested, we go, oh, I didn't really appreciate that. Oh,
Yeah.
maybe my boundaries are being tested.
Yeah. I love that. Again, there's this thing inside of me that keeps welling up every time we're talking about this. So maybe this is like a personal, becoming very personal for me. So I'm just going to keep it on a personal level. That waxing and waning of the boundary is very much, oftentimes we are programmed to accept certain types of behavior. We override what our body is telling us is not okay, because we were taught this is how we must behave. And so that it clashes with our internal or our intrinsic nature that says this is a boundary, as opposed to what we're taught. And sometimes what we're taught, especially by those that uh, have been an authority in our lives, like our parents, our teachers, even our peers, have been reinforced, and we constantly reinforce that within ourselves, and then we have a fight within our body.
Yeah,
And our body can sometimes have a collapse in itself
absolutely. Yeah.
when we are not listening to those signals, or we don't even recognize that it's actually a signal. We keep pushing back, pushing back, pushing back. Yeah, I can feel that sort of surge, or that energy inside, and the waxing and the waning. From my perspective, Keryn, that you're talking about, is that even though we are pushing back using our programming, that it's still okay. Even if we don't know that we're crossing a boundary, that's still that learning process. That's what life is all about, is that sometimes we don't understand what a boundary is. We think that we're doing okay, but our body is telling us otherwise. And I guess, in a way, the bit of allergy that I've got at the moment was that I allowed something to cross into past my boundary,
Yes,
and
I can see
it
that.
invaded my body.
Well,
Now,
you're ditto.
yes, and again, I don't know everything about everything that's going on, and I was not aware that that was happening, but there was a vulnerability in my system, and that crossed a boundary into my system. So what I do with that now, and I guess that sort of comes down to being aware of oneself. Whenever I have a time where my body is low energy, or whether I've got pain or this cold, naturally, and I want everyone to think about this next time something happens, as whether it's a pain, whether it's emotional pain, physical pain, allergy, is that we naturally go inwards. We naturally become quiet. We naturally turn inside of ourselves. We check in with ourselves. And that's a sure sign that we are checking in with what our boundaries are. What do we need right now? Who am I and what do I need? And that strengthens that connection with who we are. And now, for myself, with what I've got going on here, I understand that where my limits are now. In other words, whenever I go into public transport, I'll be masking up
Yep.
because I have a vulnerability, and this has shown me that that's my line in the sand. That's my boundary in a very physical way, a very practical way.
We really don't know how strong our boundaries are until they are tested.
They're tested. Yeah.
And look, I feel that the times that you and I grew up in, so let's call it out, back in the
Yeah.
1960s,
60s,
the
70s. Yeah.
world, we, number one, we were girls, we were women, female, and number two, we were born into a very masculine driven world. So we grew up in a world where we were told what to do and we were expected to do that. I'm very conscious now when I watch my daughter and her husband interacting with their children. So, we've been born in the last 5 years, that they are being invited to understand boundaries as individuals. And it fascinates me to watch them do this. But oh my goodness, it's like they are reminding their children from that soul perspective, but certainly from a physical
Yeah.
perspective, they are teaching their children they matter. They are an individual and they matter. And when they say to a friend in the playground, no, number one, they're allowed to say no. And number two, they can expect that the other person is there to listen and abide by, because no is defining a boundary for them. This is this didn't exist when I was growing up. You were out in the playground, you were doing what you were doing. That was it. I can't
Yeah.
remember growing up consciously when I started to interact and appreciate that I was allowed to have boundaries and therefore act on them.
Yeah.
It's like no is a complete sentence. I still laugh at that, but I still go,
Yeah.
wow, yes, it is, isn't it? And it must come back to, and thank you to my grandchildren for teaching me this, they matter. If their bedroom door is shut, I need to knock and ask permission to go in. It's their space. I didn't, when I was growing up, if my parents wanted to come in, bugger the knock, they'd come in. Now, did it upset me? Yes. But for them, it was their territory, particularly my father. My mother was far more respectful. It's a different world that we live in. I would love to go through with you some ideas from our magical three pillars of salt, sage, and stardust and share with our listeners our perspective on from a salt perspective.
Yeah.
What are boundaries? How can we strengthen our boundaries? What do boundaries look like? And then we'll do it from a sage perspective, and then we'll do it from a stardust. So it's giving our listeners what I feel are those three magical perspectives that we all live with: being part of nature and Mother Earth, reconnecting to the wisdom of who we are in the physical body, and remembering that we're part of the wonderful divine energy of the heavens that are above us.
Yeah.
So, are you willing to come on this little
Yeah.
adventure with me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got lots of um, hints and tips and little stories to go along with that, because, as I said, this is very personal for me. My boundaries were only growing as soon as I started doing my spiritual work and my soul work, that I understood what boundaries were all about. So it was open slather when I was younger, and with terrible results. So
Well,
it's very
I
yeah,
hope you
very
don't give
strong.
yourself a hard time about that comment, because the
No, no,
reality is
yeah,
when, and I'm going to use the word contained, when
mm,
we connect to something that has its space, there are unspoken boundaries, I suppose. When we connect to that divine essence of who we are, that part of us knows what's ours and what isn't. As a
mm,
human, it's like we're a balloon that is not tethered. It's just flowing with the breeze,
yeah,
and it can
yeah,
end up anywhere.
yeah.
Okay, and it was obviously part of your journey this time around in your learning process. So,
Very much so. Yeah.
from a salt perspective, what are your thoughts on boundaries from that salt perspective?
What I liked, like from a salt perspective, it really is about how you perceive your signals from your body, because your body is the first communicator that something's not okay. The body knows when something, when a line has been crossed. And I was only just made me think about this. I had just read a little article today about people who say that they are too sensitive, or that they feel too much. And what really that means, from the perspective of the writer, which I just love it, is that perhaps people who are very sensitive can actually see the or sense the patterns before they emerge. And so the body itself tells us by discomfort. There are little signals that are going off that makes us feel uncomfortable in ourselves. Like there might be, especially in the gut, like in the solar plexus. I don't just remember the conditioning of the mind will come and override it and say, "Remember we did that our other podcast? Oh, it doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter." The mind will want to say, stay here, do this, do that, because that was the conditioning. That was the safe way of doing something. When our body is actually letting us know that something is amiss, and that doesn't mean it doesn't have to be a big danger. It can just be something slight. And so once we realise uh, that something is amiss within our body, again, we don't have to go and jump and run away, or come out and fight. We don't have to put walls up or do anything special. We take note of it and we reflect on it a little bit later. Okay, well, what was it that I was uncomfortable with? What was it? Was there something that triggered me? Was it something that I said? Where was the line crossed for me? What was wrong? And we reflect on it a bit later. But for me, the first part is the body lets us know. The body knows. What about you? What's your signal for a boundary cross?
Well, from a salt perspective, it reminds me of the importance to anchor into Mother Earth.
Yeah.
for me, the salt perspective is the role that Mother Earth plays in my world. And how can I make use of her and her divine magic, her divinity, of which I am a part. And it's, yeah, I'm going to keep coming back to grounding, grounding into her. So from a human perspective, living my life, no is a complete sentence. It's me having some clarity. It's, if you think of an ocean, when it breaks onto the shore and recedes, it's like that shore is a boundary for the ocean. The ocean comes in, goes back, but there's only so far that the ocean will go. And I feel that it's almost like there's a clear boundary from our visual perspective. If you look at the ocean, that the shoreline is a clear boundary of there's the ocean, there's the beach. For me, I would benefit from having some clarity in my own landscape when it comes to my world. And just knowing how far I'm going to allow myself. So, from a work perspective, being clear on my work hours, being clear on who I'm going to spend time with in my personal life. It's kind of like fences in a garden. It sets up both a visual barrier, but it also protects, I suppose, what's going on within when it comes to me and my dreams. Does that make sense? There's something about
It
boundaries
does.
that
Yeah.
roots me into who I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. So are you saying that the visual representation of it reminds you?
For me, absolutely. I
Picture.
am a very
Yeah.
visual person.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even talking it through, if I am clearly rooted
Mm.
in my knowing of who I am,
Yeah.
I can't be blown off course by anybody else
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
such a great extent because I'm rooted into
Yeah.
the earth upon which I
Yeah.
stand. And it, am I going to be blown around? Yeah, I will, because I'm going to be responding to what's happening external to me.
Yeah.
But in that
Yeah.
clarity of knowing who I am and being rooted in that, this is where that idea of the salt part for me comes into my life. Because I know when a
Yeah.
tree is rooted, deeply rooted into Mother Earth, the winds can come, and it's going to take a heck of a lot to blow it over.
Yeah.
And it's taken time, often, for the roots to go deep.
Yeah.
So, Keryn, be gentle with yourself. Don't expect it to happen overnight. But boundaries will contribute to this day by day process of me
Yeah.
rooting into who I am.
Yeah. And it is a like it is a like a day by day learning process, because until you butt up against that boundary, then you don't know that there's a boundary there.
No.
And so having that physical representation, really important. I love that. I love that.
So, from a sage perspective, young lady,
Mm.
how would you what would you share with our listeners when it comes to boundaries from that sage, that body wisdom perspective?
I love the sage perspective as you were talking about when you were talking about your grandkids and the way that they're being taught. It made me think about that they are being taught their innate wisdom, to tap into their innate wisdom, the wisdom that they were born with. And for me, the sage part of it is that innate wisdom that when we test the boundary, we don't really know. Sometimes, as I mentioned before, sometimes we don't know what our boundary is. Or we've been putting up with something that we thought, oh, that's my boundary. And all of a sudden something shifts and changes that. Going with that internal and being okay when we say no. That
Yes.
if we say no to something and somebody else is, or something or someone feels left out or feels rejection, being okay with watching that happen, respecting my boundary. I don't have to make it okay for that person. I'm not rejecting them. I'm actually loving myself. And so it's not until I touch those boundaries and actually see where my limits are. And oftentimes living life, taking a few chances, thinking, oh, okay, that's probably not okay, getting burnt a bit. It's tapping into that wise part of me because that makes me me. All of those other
Absolutely.
experiences about learning what my boundaries are, understanding my body and getting those, I get the feelings, right? I'm all about the feels. But once I start poking those boundaries and saying, well, okay, oh, that's probably a little bit too far, and being okay with that,
Yep.
being honoring that part of who I am. That is my sage, is that I am loving myself enough and honoring myself enough to say, you know what, I'm okay with setting a boundary here. And I'm okay with if somebody is rejected by that and wants to, leave me behind and reject me right back. If they feel rejected and want to reject me, then I'm okay with that. To be okay with that. I mean, that does take a lot
Absolutely.
to understand, or to accept and to be okay with. But that comes, of course, with age, I think, as well.
But you've got to
It
be in
definitely
it to
tests.
learn. You don't know what
Exactly.
it's
You
like
can't.
to have your
Exactly.
finger burnt by fire until your finger gets in the
It's
fire.
until you do, yeah. And you
And,
think, oh,
if it
that's,
didn't get it the first
yeah,
time, you'll do it again. It's,
yes, yeah,
there is something
yeah,
about the body, the physical body.
yeah.
It it just knows. It's like the boundaries are more an internal signal.
They are. They are.
And we
We're
know
born with it. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
um, waking up with a tight jaw after a sleep,
Mm,
having restless sleep, waking
mm,
up feeling exhausted, sitting with a friend, and when they've gone, you feel like you need a bloody good night's sleep because you're so exhausted from the conversation.
mm.
This is for me, my body telling me a
Yeah,
line has been crossed.
yeah,
And my body tells me before my brain kicks in to the, oh, what's going on here? My body has had a physical response.
yeah.
And then it's for me, if I so choose, and I will think through and go, oh, okay, why? But the reality is, and when it comes to friends, and it can happen, gosh, with family, after a family event, how many people leave totally exhausted?
Mm,
And, let's be honest, we would probably at that point say, yeah, my boundaries were crossed, my boundaries were challenged. And it's ignoring these cues that will lead to things like burnout, resentment, even illness, even sickness
yeah,
can
yeah.
end up as a result because our physical body is kind of going, danger, 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 for anybody
Mm,
that's old enough to remember Lost in Space, and the robot going, danger, Will Robinson, danger. Our physical body was doing that. And
yeah,
it's up to us to listen and then go, what are we going to do about it?
yeah,
What's our next step? It's like boundaries for me from a sage perspective. They honor the wisdom of my inner landscape. When I was talking about my outer landscape, like that of a
yeah,
beach and the shoreline, I I also have inner landscapes, and it's when I can feel that something's off. I go, okay, boundary's been crossed, the alarm's gone off, what am I going to do about it? Make sense?
Does, yes. It absolutely does. Yeah.
So from a
Oh, yeah.
Stardust, sorry, do
Yeah.
you got something to
No,
say
I
on
was
that?
just going to say, yeah, it explains perfectly the process of that inner or innate wisdom. I think we're born with that,
Absolutely.
and life helps us uncover that, and to each a step of our life every day helps us to connect with that inner part of who we are. When we become that unique person, then we are part. We can take our place in that thread of the world, which leads to Stardust.
Indeed. So
Yes,
your
yeah,
perspective on the Stardust understanding of boundaries. Take it away,
yes.
Miss Vicky.
I love the thought, and I used to think about this for my kids, um, growing as because as I was growing up with my kids. Basically, I really didn't have a lot of understanding of the world. I thought I did, and so I thought I made a lot of I not mistakes, but as you do, you grow up with your kids, and oftentimes I'll look back and think, if only, and I stopped doing that. This is this is my Stardust explanation, and somebody said this to me, and it made a lot of sense. So I've adopted it for myself. Is that whenever if I crossed let something or someone cross a boundary where I behaved or reacted in a way that was not only detrimental to my health and well-being, but maybe produced an environment that my children may not have felt heard, or I know they were always loved, that was not a thing, but maybe heard, maybe understood. I might not have gave them that space to think. Just little things like that, because I didn't understand myself. So, from the Stardust perspective, every moment that I understood who I was and integrated that wisdom and lived it every day, it went out into the universe, not only from my aura, out into the collective.
Yes.
And as it went out into the collective, that part of me that connected to my children also healed that connection and helped them understand if there was anything that was, and it wasn't for me to say whether it was detrimental or not, but just from my perspective, helped me feel better about how things were, is that it went collectively out into the universe. So not only kids, my friends, my family, anyone that I interacted with, parents, all those sorts of things, wherever I disrespected somebody else or disrespected myself, integrating that healing to myself, it went out into the collective, created that ripple, and connected us and sent the healing out as well. Whatever it was that was a broken or unhealed cord or connection became healed and released us from that moment. And so for me, the Stardust part of it is that as I integrate and heal, I send that healing out to whoever I connected with, whatever I connected with, but also I get to connect with not only the world, but the cosmos as well. And anyone can tap into my experience if that resonates with them. Any wisdom that I've collected, if it resonates with them, it's now out there into the universe, and vice versa. I'm tapping into that cosmic universal thread as well, from the ages, not just from this lifetime, but from many lifetimes,
Absolutely.
collecting and connecting to that wisdom. So the the life that I live, every step that I've taken, everything that I've learned, every boundary boundary, but understanding of who I am. The boundary, my values. That's right. Boundaries are values and limits. Every value that I've understood about myself and refined, not only gets taken out through the ages back and forth, but also too becomes a collective for when my next lifetime, and so on and so forth. So it's endless, it's infinite, whatever it is that I've learned. And it continues to shift and change no matter what. It's like a dance.
It is.
It flows back and forth. And I just want to finish up with one thing. It's not that I know everything or that I have all the answers for everything, but oftentimes when I talk to somebody about something that I've gone through and how this has affected me and how I've come through it to the other side, that creates, especially with my clients or even with my friends, it creates a healing connection with them. And you can visibly see something shift and change. And I like to think that that happens out into the universe as well. So even a little bit at a time. Does that
Welcome to life.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome to life.
So I went off into the universe there with that one, but yeah, it's
it's
yeah.
but that's this connection when we talk about the stardust. It's, like stars have orbits, the planets have
Yeah.
orbits, galaxies have edges. We as humans have defined the edge of our universe as we know it to be. Our divine essence, our spirit, requires an energetic containment for us to be able to shine. Imagine the light bulb that wasn't contained, that the light would scatter and it wouldn't be anywhere near as focused. It would be dim. And we're going to be no different. Our essence, we each here are a light, and when it's shining bright, OMG, what we attract, it's magnetic. It's truly, truly magnetic. It's I love the fact that when we say no to something that is external to us, we are saying a yes to ourselves, which is a beautiful sign of love for ourselves. But the no is not a rejection, it's simply a redirection
Yeah.
of our light, of our essence, of that part of us that is ever. It's just ever flowing, ever glowing. And it anchors, I believe, us deeper into who we are. And when we get those intuitive no's, this isn't yours, it can feel really very heavy. But in that moment, we know that we're being led back to who we are. It's honoring that it's a no, not yet. Trust in the divine timing, trust in divine alignment. It's like boundaries allow our souls to radiate without distortion. It's trusting that containment is crucial to us moving forward on our path and being able to live in an optimal space. It's it's so much bigger than us physically, and I love the use of the word containment because let's be honest, we here in the physical world will see a boundary as something that contains us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But from a light perspective, which is really what I'm talking about when I'm talking about our stardust connection, it's that light source that is us as individuals. It's it's so about trust. It's such a it's a big deal, because it's out there. It's not short lived. That spiritual part of us is acknowledging that we're part of a greater being, and we have a role to play as individuals, and it's trusting. Oh my God, it's trusting that.
I think at the end of the day, putting all of those together is that as we live our life to our truth and adjust so that we are the best version of it. I love to call it the best version of myself.
I know.
Which is like peeling back those layers and being that the me that was coming here this lifetime to be me. The more I connect to strengthen my boundaries, know who I am, I can show up and fulfill the purpose that I'm here to do. And I don't have to know exactly how that's going to play out, but I know because it's every day I wake up, every day I take a breath. It's my purpose. It doesn't have to be anything special. My purpose is to be here as Vicki.
The fact that you're here is special in my world.
Special, exactly. And by strengthening and being me and living my life true to myself, I'm contributing to that greater good, to that bigger purpose. And it's at the end of the day, we talk about the containment, as you mentioned, of the people that we are. We won't know until we're gone how that's actually affected anything. What we'll be able to understand from a perspective when we are Stardust, I think. But right now, honouring that person who we are is the best way to contribute to that greater good or that overall.
Well, it comes back to you. It comes back, say you,
me.
Forgive me for pointing you out, but it comes back to us as the individual. We are here to do us. I'll do me, you do you, my daughter will do her, my son will do him. That's what we've come in to be.
So important, yeah.
It's in doing the little bit of research that I did for this podcast, I came to understand that boundaries aren't cages. Boundaries are, and for me that's a big deal given where I was born into. When I say where, the world that I was born into, and all of the understandings and the way of life. It's, I've said it before, but honestly, I was expected to get married, bring children into the world, cook, clean, look after my husband. That's what I was taught. And hand on heart, it was the belief that that's what we good girls did. Obviously, I wasn't a very good girl, because I just said, nah, it doesn't make sense. But when I start to understand that boundaries are not cages, they're these sacred lines of love for myself. I'm grounding within my body. Thank you, salt. I'm honoring my emotions. Thank you, sage. And I'm protecting my soul's light. Thank you, stardust. They allow me to be rooted and radiant, and allows me to be both open and protected. And when I use the word protected, it's not from a fear based. It's acknowledging that within my boundaries, within these sacred lines, I'm free to be me. How stunning is that? There is no space for fear. It's understanding that those lines that my soul, have set is saying, Keryn, you're safe to be you. Here's the space, all the space you need to be you. Off you go. And I truly believe that when I'm vibing in that space, there's no need for me to fear anything.
I know.
Now, I'm not going to be stupid about it. There's common sense that is going to be involved as the human. But from that soul's perspective, me as this gorgeous individual called Keryn Rose, I'm free to be me. Off you go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's making me remember at the beginning of our conversation talking about, especially when we're talking about protection and walls, and like as in a container, as in
A
rigid,
physical container.
whenever. Yeah, the physical. It's, when you talk, because I'm getting all these visuals as you're talking. Of course, they're beautiful. I see the our aura. Let's call that the boundary. I can see it being flowing and fluid, and as we're talking, it's connecting, and I I can understand that if I'm feeling uncertain, it'll come in closer. If I can think about the outer edge of my aura as being my boundary, and that if I want to test something out, I send my aura out, and I can tell if that's okay for me because it'll come back, it'll give me information. If we want to talk about from an energetic level, I just keep seeing this beautiful purple. It's just got beautiful purple bubble around both of us. That's interacting as we're talking. Those are our. This is how we feel safe, because when we understand and know ourselves, our auric field is so clear.
It is.
And when we're comfortable in our boundaries, we can invite somebody in close. It doesn't have to be a wall or something really sort of strong that keeps people out.
No.
We can actually stand in our own power of who we are in that space and really enjoy the other person, really it's such a sacred experience to connect with somebody on that level rather than to have to be polite and act out certain ways. Like as we were taught, as you mentioned, I'm the same. I wasn't so much taught those things, but they were implied.
Okay.
So that this was, that was what I saw. I saw my peers, I saw my parents, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
It was implied that we had to do those sorts of things. So I had that same experience. But I just love, again, working with spirit, working with this energy. It has given me so much strength, and it's who I am. Working in this energy is who I am. It allows me to be me and to be able to connect with others and to be able to connect with the cosmos and understand what my limits are. And I don't know if I mentioned this once before, but I'll never forget when an ex of mine said to me, I was talking blah, 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 after I'd been reading all these books. I don't believe you. I don't believe that you believe what you're saying. And I thought, oh, what does that mean? It wasn't, and I thought, I'll show you. And then I went inside. I didn't know. That was me not actually understanding who I was and thinking that that was okay.
Yeah.
So it was a reflection at that time. And that was the point where I started to strengthen my boundaries by connecting
But again,
to that part of me.
we don't know what we don't know.
We don't know what we
And
don't know.
thank you, playground that we set ourselves up in.
Yes.
To have somebody come and at some point in your life, it suddenly got you.
Boom.
You felt that dart go in and you go, oh. So something had reacted to what was said. Then you go, okay, what am I going to do about it? Off you go. And welcome this shift, this change.
Yeah.
If you walk into the door jam, you go, oh, ow, what do I do? Oh, I'll go walk through the hole between the two door jams, because that's,
Yeah.
it's being stopped to go, now what am I going to do? We don't know what we don't know.
We
Welcome
don't
to
know.
life.
And
Get
those
out there and
moments are
live it.
perfect. Yep. They are perfect moments
They
because it's
absolutely,
time to
yeah.
shift.
And again, divine timing, that
Yep.
alignment. Everything is waiting
Yep.
for that right and perfect moment
Moment.
to enter into our life. So, look, I would love to just leave this thought with our listeners. And or are you going to be able to pull a card for us today, Miss Vicky?
Oh, yes, I can. Just go and grab
Cool.
my
Well,
cards.
I'm going to
You
share this
can
little
you
thought
share the thought.
with our listeners. And it's asking you to see boundaries as love in action. They are invisible threads that weave respect, freedom, and authenticity into our relationships with others, our relationships with the world, and most importantly, our relationship with ourselves.
So,
So, Miss Vicky, I would love you to pull a card. What is the intention behind this card today?
so today I like it as always as a, oh, let's do it as a threefold.
Okay.
Let's look at from the salt perspective, the sage perspective, and the stardust perspective. I'll give a short message, one card on all three.
Now, when you
And
say what are we going to be looking at? Are we looking at
we're going to
life?
be, yeah, we're going to be looking at ourselves, the reflection of who we are
Right.
in this moment, and how we can use the energy of the message of the card to understand our boundary or
Fine.
our
Thank you.
boundaries and what they are,
Okay.
how we can access and understand it.
So
All
the
right.
first one up is
So, like,
salt.
yep, salt. So I'm going to use the same card, but three separate messages.
Ah, okay.
Yep. So
So what's
we have the Page of Swords. There we
Page of
go.
Swords? Okay.
Yep. So from the salt perspective, grounding ourselves, being clear with our thoughts
Okay.
for healing, or to like to get to know what our boundaries are. The Page of Swords is about writing and journaling. So it means that our thoughts may be confused around what our boundaries are. Start writing, start keeping a journal. As you write them out, you can then decide whether that thought is valid or not. It gives you time to reflect. So, from a sage perspective, again, we're going to talk about Page of Swords represents words and air. And so, from the sage perspective, the message here is that words are just words, they are not everything. So, take with a grain of salt, if you like, what the words are, and then listen with the feelings rather than taking the words at face value. The message here is that what's being said to you, if your feelings are not connecting with it, then something is being crossed.
Okay.
It doesn't mean to say that you have to push back with words. It's just reminding us that the words are not the thing. It's not always about. They might be a deflection because you can see how he's blowing that out. And the stardust, the connection with the soul, is that if we can take ourselves above everything, not to, you can look, the pages above the mountains. So the mountains are the big things, the things that we think are huge. Take ourselves above those mountains. Are they huge? Because from that higher perspective, from the stardust perspective, we can see it with a better view. do we need to jump into it? Is there something that we really need to tackle? So we can see it from a higher perspective. Take a breath. Look at it from a higher perspective. Look down on those big mountains. Are they really mountains? Perspective is everything when it comes to that. So there we go. That's our message. That's our healing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, as usual, Miss Vicki, I have loved sharing this space with you and talking about something that, oh my goodness, I continue to work through, which is understanding and clarifying my boundaries and doing it from where I am now at almost 63 years of age. It's, I'm reworking, renovating this space. So, thank you. And thank you for sharing that card, the Page of Swords.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you to our listeners for hanging in and listening to our conversation. And please feel free to send through any thoughts, any questions that you may have. And Miss Vicki, I'll see you again next episode.
Yeah, thanks, Keryn. I've really enjoyed our conversation. It's stirred up a lot of things.
It has. Well, look, enjoy your evening, honey.
Thank you. I'll see you next week.
Catch you next week. Bye for now.